Basically, food production is coming back into the cities as never before. There's some magnificent ideas. Everywhere I go around the world, I'm finding people starting to farm their cities again, where they're doing it in urban allotments or their own backyards, or they're developing these sky farms, sophisticated $50 million investments in some cases, great big things the size of parking lots that are just full of crops and even small livestock. So this is starting to come. Now, there is a reason for this. And the reason is that the cities concentrate massive amounts of nutrients. I mean, they suck nutrients from all over the planet, and water. The cities drag in water from everywhere, and then they spew it out of the pipe off Manly Beach or something like that. So we waste all that stuff. But if you can catch it and reuse it, you can turn it into food. So cities are actually a natural place where food can be grown, even though it doesn't sound likely. So all of this thinking is going on. Now, back of Sydney, Blue Farms is producing all those lovely fresh herbs and spices that you find in Coles, and barramundi. On the same farms, they're all on a huge conveyor belt, and the roots of the plants are trailing in the water, the nutrients from the fish are feeding the plants. It's one of those nice specialised systems. It's just the beginning of a technological revolution. I mean, that's how farms will look, in 30, 50 years' time. I visited Milgartners in Norway. They're producing 3,000 tonnes of beautiful, fresh, organic tomatoes. No pesticides. They use bumblebees and aphids and all sorts of things to control the pests and to pollinate the crops. They're producing 3,000 tonnes off 7 hectares in 9 months of the year. Okay, so you can do it. You can produce vast quantities of food, 10 to 100 times higher yields than you are getting on a broadacre farm. So there's lots of people who are proving that this stuff is already, and there's stuff like that happening all through America at the moment, through Europe, and so on. Australia is a little bit behind, but we've got some promising developments. Solar farms. You can take sunlight and use it to extract the salt from salt groundwater, saline groundwater, or from the ocean, turn it into fresh water and grow crops in the middle of the desert. If you don't believe me, they're already doing it at Whyalla. Okay, we are a pioneer in this particular industry of desert farming, where areas that are not supplied with fresh water, we're actually using sunshine to make the fresh water. Floating farms are being talked about for the cities of Asia. They're being designed by architects for Singapore, Shanghai, these kinds of places where land is at a premium. There isn't a lot of spare land around, but there's a bit of a harbour there and things like that. And again, on the skyscraper model, you can produce a heck of a lot of food in a very small area. And again, you can convert the salt water into fresh water to irrigate your crop. So there's a lot of interesting things. So the city itself is going to change. And instead of these boring rows of tombstones that we've got, concrete and glass bloody monoliths, with wind travelling at 30 knots down the middle, we're going to have cities that are verdant, abundant with life, green, leafy, full of birds, full of insects, pumpkins hanging on the side of Parliament House, there'll be sheep grazing. Isn't that going to be a much nicer city to live in? So architects are already working on this, but we need urban planners to work on the nutrient and the water flows to ensure that those are available. So a mega city does not have to starve. It can grow half, maybe even more than half, of its food within its own boundaries, just by recycling water and nutrients and using the energy right. Urban permaculture, I call it. It's a sensible approach that is going to replace the destructive farming systems that we've currently got. But more than that, it's going to take the economic pressure off farming. That will enable us, ladies and gentlemen, that will enable us to return to the world 24 million square kilometres of currently developed land for rewilding. And that is how we are going to prevent the sixth extinction which humans are now wreaking on the planet. Farmers, indigenous people, will look after that. They will be paid by us to look after it. Farmers who remain as farmers will get much better prices for high quality, healthy, organic produce that is not produced under this pressure cooker system that we've currently got. They will be properly rewarded for sustainable, healthy produce. So this is going to work to everybody's benefit. But, you know, we've got a whole evolution to go through before we get there. Fish farming is going to be the biggest boom industry in livestock. We already eat about 65 million tonnes of fish and water crops grown on farms. If you shop in Canberra now, nearly all the fish you get here are actually farmed fish, mainly grown in Asia. So this is going to become, you know, the big thing. But the question is, how do we feed the fish? If you're going to feed 200 million tonnes of fish, plus all the sheep and the cattle and pigs and poultry, we're going to have to discover 3 more North Americas just to grow enough grain. But ladies and gentlemen, you know, anyone who knows anything about fish knows that fish don't eat grain. It's a stupid thing to feed them on, you know. Fish eat water plants, don't they? Algae. So algae is going to be the world's huge cropping industry. I mean, algae grow in salt water using sunshine. And I'm pleased to say that Australia is, you know, forging ahead here. The bloke on the bottom right, that's up at Karratha, you know, not just back from the sea there. That pink thing in the middle is down here at Nowra. They've taken algae out of the local creek and they are growing them intensively in shipping containers using some very clever technology that splits the sunlight into exactly those wavelengths that algae like to bask in. And they are producing jet fuel for Lufthansa. This is where we're going to get the fuel from. And we can grow every single litre of transport fuel that Australia needs from an area no larger than 1 sheep station. Okay? We could in fact produce the entire world's supply of transport fuels from an area 1/10 the size of the Pilbara. Okay, so this is a big industry. There are 30, 40 countries already getting in there. We are just one of them. We really need to put our backs into this. It's an industry that will save Australia $50 billion. It will employ probably 50,000 people in remote and rural locations. So, but this is, and what you don't turn into oil, you can then feed to the fish. Or you can make plastic, or you can make a t-shirt out of it if you want to. So it's a, you know, it is a way of replacing dirty fossil fuels with renewable sunshine-produced oil. It's liquid solar energy, basically. Okay, you went to the biggest market in the world. You would find maybe 200 or 300 different plant varieties on sale. But my good friend agronomist, Dr. Bruce French in Tasmania, says there are 27,000 edible plant species on the planet. Okay, so we haven't actually yet begun to explore the planet in terms of what is good to eat or good to farm. Maybe Homo erectus did, but he was more advanced than us. There are just thousands and thousands of them. Many of these things are essential components in a healthy diet. They will address the lifestyle diseases that we are suffering from now. And just to take a particular example, here in Australia there are 6,100 edible plants. Okay, and how many do we actually eat? 5, 6, 7, yeah. Very, very few. So we've been here 200 or 300 years. We haven't noticed what's under our noses. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, shutting down remote Aboriginal settlements, the people who are the guardians of the knowledge of the new food revolution. They're kicking them off their land and telling them they're lifestylers or some bloody thing. You know, we don't use our brains often, do we? Sorry, I got a bit political there. Another big change coming down, and you're not going to like this if you like food, but synthetic meat. That is meat grown from animal stem cells. So it's real meat, but it just never went moo. Is going to be here within 5 to 10 years. The University of Maastricht produced that hamburger. Now, don't get too excited, it cost $350,000. You know, so it's a while before it's at McDonald's, but you know, that is actually going to take out the lower end of the meat market, leaving farmers to produce the upmarket stuff and get paid properly for it. So this is good for farmers. It's also good for you because this meat will contain the things that are good for you and exclude the things that are bad for you. This is the age in which the diet will be profiled to your individual genetic needs. Okay, and synthetic meat is a way of meeting the needs for meat, for high protein, of enormous countries like India and China, and ourselves, into the future without damaging the planet. Because it has a very, very small footprint. It takes up very little land, next to no water, and it can be just as good as the other stuff. So, and the same thing with biocultures. Again, these are cultures of plant cells or microbial cells or fungal cells. It sounds pretty yucky, but I mean, honestly, do you know what's in a chicken nugget? Do you know what is in a sausage? No, you better not inquire either. So really this, again, we can produce vast quantities of food in quite small containers, like that silver vat there. And it can be made interesting, believe it or not. I mean, we already add salt, sugar, fat and dye to most things, to make them interesting. But I think we can do better than that. And again, you can precisely, if somebody has a disposition to diabetes, you can precisely specify their food so that they keep the disease at bay. That's what the potential of these new food industries is. But ladies and gentlemen, this is not going to happen without us consumers, without we consumers, okay? 8 billion people living in cities, none of them got a clue how food is produced. If they send the wrong signals to the market will produce the wrong food. We have to educate them. We have to start with the young and get them to educate their parents, who are probably a bit too late for them. We need a food year in every junior school on the planet. That's a year in which every subject the children study is informed by food. So whether it's geography or science or domestic science or sport, you're taught how to nourish yourself, how to maintain your energy, things like that, where your food comes from, how it's produced. So we need to inform the citizen of planet Earth of the middle of this century about these things. Otherwise, they will keep on demanding food that destroys the place instead of restores the place, that destroys their own health instead of protecting it. So we need to teach a new respect for food, a humanity that doesn't chuck 40 to 50% of its nourishment in the landfill.